Before we dive deep into this forbidden knowledge that spiritual authorities have kept hidden for centuries, I need to ask you something. What time is it where you are right now, and where exactly are you watching this from? I'm asking because timing and location matter more than you realize when it comes to spiritual protection, and depending on your energy state and geographical location, you might be more vulnerable to what I'm about to reveal than you think. You see, every location on Earth has its own energetic signature, its own vibrational frequency, and certain times of day create windows of opportunity for these entities I'm about to expose. So knowing where you are and when you're receiving this information will help you understand your current level of risk and protection. Welcome back to the Eternal Library. You've probably felt it before, that sudden heaviness in your chest when you walk into certain rooms, that unexplained exhaustion after being around certain people, or those moments when your thoughts suddenly turn dark and negative for no apparent reason. You might have dismissed these experiences as stress, imagination, or just having a bad day. But what if I told you that what you're actually experiencing is something far more serious, something that ancient mystery schools, shamanic traditions, and esoteric practitioners have known about for thousands of years, but modern society has systematically erased from collective consciousness? What if I told you that invisible entities, beings that exist in dimensions parallel to our physical reality, are constantly attempting to attach themselves to your energy field, your aura, and once they succeed, they can influence your thoughts, emotions, decisions, and even your physical health in ways that will shock you to your core? This isn't some New Age fantasy or Hollywood horror story. This is documented knowledge that has been preserved in ancient texts, practiced by indigenous shamans across every continent, and experienced by millions of spiritually awakened individuals who have learned to perceive beyond the limited five-sense reality that most people accept as the totality of existence. The truth is, we live in a multi-dimensional universe where consciousness exists at various frequencies and vibrational levels, and just as there are benevolent beings of light who seek to guide and protect us on our spiritual journey, there are also darker entities, beings that feed off negative emotions, fear, anger, depression, and life force energy itself. And these parasitic consciousnesses have developed sophisticated methods of attachment that most people are completely unaware of. Until it's too late. But here's what they don't want you to know. Once you understand how these attachments work, how these entities operate, and most importantly, how to protect yourself and remove any existing attachments, you become immune to their influence and can actually use this knowledge to help others who are under spiritual attack without even realizing it. The ancient Egyptians called them demons of the threshold. The Tibetan Buddhists refer to them as hungry ghosts. Native American traditions know them as shadow beings, and in Hermetic teachings they're described as qliphothic entities. But regardless of the name, they all describe the same phenomenon: conscious beings that exist in the astral and etheric planes who seek to merge their consciousness with human beings in order to experience physical reality through our bodies and emotions, while simultaneously draining our life force energy to sustain their own existence. Now, before you dismiss this as superstition or primitive thinking, consider this: every major spiritual tradition throughout history has developed elaborate protection practices, cleansing rituals, and defensive techniques specifically designed to guard against these entities, which suggests that our ancestors weren't dealing with imaginary threats but with real, documented experiences that posed genuine dangers to spiritual and psychological well-being. Modern psychology has co-opted many of these experiences under labels like intrusive thoughts, depression, anxiety disorders, or personality disorders. But what mainstream psychology fails to recognize is that many of these conditions are actually symptoms of spiritual attachment, where foreign consciousness has integrated itself into the person's energy field and is influencing their mental and emotional state from within. The reason this knowledge has been suppressed in modern times is because understanding the reality of spiritual attachment would completely transform how we approach mental health, personal development, and human consciousness itself, which would threaten established medical, pharmaceutical, and religious systems that profit from keeping people dependent on external solutions rather than empowering them with spiritual knowledge and protection techniques. But the truth is coming out anyway, as more and more people are experiencing spontaneous spiritual awakenings that naturally expand their perception beyond the physical realm. And with this expanded awareness comes the inevitable encounter with both positive and negative non-physical entities that most people are completely unprepared to handle. So let me explain exactly how these attachments work, because understanding the mechanism is the first step toward protection and prevention. Your aura, which is the electromagnetic energy field that surrounds and interpenetrates your physical body, extends approximately 6 to 8 feet in all directions when you're in a healthy, balanced state, and this energy field contains information about your thoughts, emotions, past experiences, traumas, fears, desires, and spiritual development level. Essentially, your aura is like a broadcasting system that constantly transmits your energetic signature into the surrounding environment, where it can be perceived by both physical and non-physical beings. When your aura is strong, bright, and coherent, it acts as a natural protective barrier that repels negative entities and attracts positive, healing energies. But when your aura becomes weakened, damaged, or fragmented due to trauma, illness, substance abuse, negative thinking patterns, emotional instability, or spiritual practices performed without proper protection, it creates openings, tears, or weak spots that entities can exploit as entry points. These entities are attracted to specific energetic frequencies, particularly fear, anger, guilt, shame, despair, jealousy, hatred, and sexual obsession. So people who are stuck in these emotional states for extended periods become like magnets for parasitic attachments that feed off these energies and work to perpetuate and amplify them to ensure a steady food source. The attachment process typically begins with the entity hovering around the person's energy field, testing for weaknesses, and this initial phase might manifest as sudden negative thoughts, unexplained mood swings, feeling watched or followed, nightmares, sleep disturbances, or a general sense of unease that seems to come from nowhere. If the person doesn't recognize what's happening and take protective action at this stage, the entity will begin to probe deeper, looking for traumatic memories, unhealed wounds, or suppressed emotions that it can use as anchoring points to establish a more permanent connection. Once the entity finds these vulnerable spots, it will begin to feed off the associated negative emotions while simultaneously implanting thoughts and impulses designed to create more of the same energy. For example, an entity that feeds off anger will whisper suggestions that make the person more likely to become angry, interpret situations negatively, hold grudges, or engage in conflicts, creating a self-perpetuating cycle that strengthens the attachment over time. The most insidious aspect of this process is that the entity's influence is so subtle and gradual that the person begins to identify these foreign thoughts and emotions as their own, never realizing that their personality, decision-making process, and life trajectory are being influenced by an external consciousness that has its own agenda. As the attachment deepens, the entity gains more control over the person's energy system. And this is when you start to see dramatic personality changes, self-destructive behaviors, addictive patterns, chronic illness, relationship problems, financial difficulties, and a general downward spiral in all areas of life that seems to resist conventional solutions because the root cause is spiritual rather than physical or psychological. The entity essentially becomes a parasite that drains the person's life force energy, leaving them feeling constantly exhausted, depressed, unmotivated, and disconnected from their higher self and spiritual purpose, while the entity grows stronger and more influential with each passing day. But here's where it gets even more disturbing. These entities don't just attach to individuals, they can also attach to places, objects, family lineages, and even entire communities or cultures, creating generational patterns of dysfunction, trauma, and negative experiences that get passed down through bloodlines until someone finally wakes up and breaks the cycle through spiritual knowledge and protection practices. This is why you'll often see families where addiction, abuse, depression, or other destructive patterns repeat generation after generation despite everyone's conscious efforts to break free, because the underlying spiritual attachment has never been addressed and continues to influence each new generation through the family's collective energy field. The same principle applies to haunted houses, cursed objects, and places where traumatic events have occurred. These locations become imprinted with negative energy and can harbor entities that attach to anyone who enters the space without proper protection, which is why sensitive people often feel uncomfortable or experience negative symptoms in certain buildings, neighborhoods, or geographical areas without understanding why. Now, you might be wondering how to know if you or someone you care about has picked up one of these attachments, and the signs are usually quite obvious once you know what to look for, though most people attribute them to other causes. The most common indicators include sudden personality changes that seem out of character, persistent negative thinking patterns that resist positive thinking or therapy, unexplained physical symptoms that don't respond to medical treatment, chronic fatigue that isn't related to physical exertion or illness, sleep disturbances including nightmares, night terrors, or feeling more tired after sleep than before, addiction or compulsive behaviors that seem to have a life of their own, relationship problems that escalate for no apparent reason, financial difficulties that persist despite good intentions and efforts, feeling like you're not in control of your own thoughts or actions, hearing voices or having conversations in your head with what feels like another personality, feeling watched, followed, or threatened by invisible presences, sudden onset of anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues without obvious triggers, increased sensitivity to crowds, negative people, or chaotic environments, difficulty meditating or engaging in spiritual practices due to interference with electronic devices, lights flickering, or other unexplained phenomena around you, in a general sense that your life is being sabotaged by forces beyond your control. If you recognize several of these signs in your own experience, don't panic, because awareness is the first step toward freedom, and the fact that you're watching this video and resonating with this information means your higher self is already guiding you toward the solution. The most important thing to understand is that these entities only have as much power over you as you unconsciously give them through fear, ignorance, and victimhood consciousness. Once you reclaim your spiritual sovereignty and implement proper protection techniques, they lose their ability to influence you and will typically move on to easier targets. The ancient mystery schools understood that spiritual protection wasn't optional for anyone serious about consciousness expansion and spiritual development. It was considered fundamental knowledge that had to be mastered before attempting any advanced practices like astral projection, channeling, energy healing, or communication with non-physical beings. In fact, most authentic spiritual traditions have elaborate initiation processes specifically designed to teach students how to recognize, avoid, and remove negative entities while attracting and working with benevolent spiritual guides and guardians who can provide protection and guidance on the spiritual path. The Egyptian mystery schools taught that the aura could be strengthened through specific breathing techniques, visualization practices, and invocation of protective deities and symbols that would create an impenetrable barrier around the initiate's energy field. The Tibetan Buddhists developed sophisticated practices like the Medicine Buddha meditation, Green Terra invocation, and various protective mantras that could dissolve negative attachments and prevent new ones from forming. Native American shamans used sage smudging, protective ceremonies, and power animal retrieval to cleanse and protect individuals from spiritual interference. The Hermetic tradition taught the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram and other ceremonial techniques that could clear negative entities from both people and spaces. Hindu and yoga traditions developed chakra cleansing practices, protective mantras like the Gayatri Mantra, and invocation of deities like Hanuman and Ganesha who specialize in removing obstacles and negative influences. Even Christianity, before it was institutionalized and stripped of its esoteric knowledge, taught about casting out demons, spiritual warfare, and the protection available through prayer, sacred symbols, and divine intervention. The common thread running through all these traditions is the understanding that spiritual protection is an active practice that requires knowledge, intention, and regular maintenance. It's not something you can do once and forget about, because the spiritual realm is constantly in motion, and your energy field is constantly interacting with other energies and entities, both positive and negative. So let me share with you some of the most powerful and effective protection techniques that have been tested and proven by spiritual practitioners for thousands of years. Techniques that you can start using immediately to cleanse any existing attachments and create a protective barrier that will keep you safe as you continue your spiritual journey. The first and most fundamental technique is learning to consciously strengthen and seal your aura through visualization and intention, because a strong, healthy aura is your first line of defense against any kind of negative influence. Begin by sitting or standing in a comfortable position with your spine straight and your feet firmly planted on the ground. Then close your eyes and take several deep breaths while imagining roots extending from the base of your spine down into the earth, grounding you to the planet's protective and nurturing energy. Next, visualize a brilliant white or golden light beginning to glow in the center of your chest, in the area of your heart chakra, and with each breath, see this light growing brighter and more radiant until it fills your entire torso with healing, protective energy. Continue breathing deeply and intentionally while visualizing this light expanding outward from your body, forming a perfect sphere of protective energy that extends about 6 feet in all directions around you. And as you hold this visualization, mentally affirm that this light is impenetrable to any negative energy, entity, or influence while remaining completely permeable to love, healing, guidance, and positive energy from benevolent sources. The key to making this technique effective is combining the visualization with genuine emotion and intention. You must feel the power and protection of this light, not just think about it, because emotion is the fuel that powers all spiritual practices and gives them real-world effectiveness. Practice this technique at least twice daily, once in the morning to set your protection for the day and once at night before sleep to maintain your defense during the vulnerable dream state. And with consistent practice, you'll find that your natural sensitivity to negative energy increases while your ability to deflect it also grows stronger. The second essential technique is learning to call upon spiritual protection from higher dimensional beings who specialize in spiritual defense and entity removal, because while your own energy and intention are powerful, sometimes you need assistance from beings who have more advanced spiritual abilities and authority in the non-physical realms. The most universally effective approach is to call upon Archangel Michael, who is recognized across multiple spiritual traditions as the warrior angel who specializes in cutting cords, removing attachments, and providing spiritual protection to anyone who sincerely requests his help. You can invoke Archangel Michael by simply saying, either out loud or in your mind, "Archangel Michael, I call upon your presence and protection. Please surround me with your blue flame of protection. Cut any cords or attachments that are not for my highest good, and remove any negative entities or energies from my aura and energy field. I ask that you station guardian angels around me at all times to maintain this protection. Thank you for your help and intervention." The key is to make this request with genuine faith and gratitude, trusting that your call for help will be answered, because these beings operate according to the spiritual law of free will, which means they cannot intervene in your life unless you specifically ask for their assistance. Many people are amazed by how quickly and dramatically their energy shifts when they begin working with Archangel Michael on a regular basis, often reporting immediate relief from negative thoughts, improved sleep, increased energy, and a general sense of safety and protection that they may not have felt for years. The third crucial technique is regular spiritual cleansing of your living and working spaces, because negative entities can attach to locations and objects just as easily as they attach to people, and you want to make sure your environment supports your spiritual protection rather than undermining it. The most effective method for space clearing is sage smudging, which has been used by indigenous cultures for thousands of years to remove negative energy and entities from homes, ceremonial spaces, and sacred sites. To properly smudge a space, light a sage bundle or loose sage leaves in a fireproof container, then walk slowly through each room while allowing the smoke to reach all corners, closets, and hidden areas while mentally or verbally commanding any negative energies or entities to leave the space immediately and permanently. As you smudge, you can say something like, "I command all negative energies, entities, and influences to leave this space now and never return. This space is filled with light, love, and protection, and only positive energy is welcome here." Pay special attention to areas where arguments have occurred, where someone has been ill, or where you simply feel uncomfortable or heavy, because these areas often hold the strongest negative imprints that need extra clearing. After smudging, it's important to fill the space with positive energy by burning some sweet-smelling incense like frankincense or sandalwood, playing uplifting music, or simply spending time in meditation or prayer while holding the intention that the space be blessed and protected. You should also pay attention to the objects in your environment, because items can carry energy from their previous owners or from negative events that occurred around them. So if you have antiques, secondhand items, or gifts from people who might have negative energy, consider cleansing them with sage smoke, salt water, or moonlight before bringing them into your personal space. The fourth essential protection technique is learning to recognize and avoid situations, people, and activities that make you more vulnerable to spiritual attachment, because prevention is always easier than removal once an entity has established itself in your energy field. The most dangerous situations include using drugs or alcohol excessively, because these substances lower your natural spiritual defenses and can actually open doorways in your aura that entities use for entry, which is why many people report paranormal experiences, negative thoughts, or personality changes during or after substance use. Engaging with occult practices without proper knowledge and protection is another major risk factor, including using Ouija boards, participating in seances, experimenting with black magic or curses, or attempting to contact spirits without understanding how to protect yourself first. These activities are like sending out an open invitation to any entity in the area to come and interact with you, and you have no control over what kind of consciousness will respond to your call. Spending time around chronically negative people who complain constantly, harbor resentment, engage in gossip, or seem to drain your energy whenever you're around them can also make you vulnerable, because negative people often carry negative entities that can jump from person to person through energetic contact, much like physical diseases can be transmitted through close contact with infected individuals. Places where violence, trauma, or intense negative emotions have occurred regularly, such as hospitals, prisons, battlefields, cemeteries, bars, or even homes where there has been abuse, depression, or addiction, can harbor entities that attach to sensitive visitors who don't know how to protect themselves. Even seemingly innocent activities like watching violent movies, listening to music with dark or negative lyrics, reading books about dark subjects, or consuming news media that focuses on fear, conflict, and disaster can lower your vibrational frequency and make you more attractive to entities that resonate with those energies. The key is developing discernment about what influences you expose yourself to and how they affect your energy field, mood, and spiritual state, because everything in your environment is either raising your vibration or lowering it, and your goal is to consciously choose influences that support your spiritual growth and protection rather than undermining it. The fifth powerful technique is using protective symbols, crystals, and sacred objects that have been charged with protective energy and can serve as physical anchors for your spiritual defense system. Throughout history, every spiritual tradition has developed specific symbols, talismans, and amulets that carry protective power when properly consecrated and used with faith and understanding. The pentagram, when pointed upward, is one of the most universally protective symbols and can be worn as jewelry, drawn on paper and carried with you, or visualized as a shield of light around your aura during meditation or when you feel under spiritual attack. The cross, regardless of your religious beliefs, carries powerful protective energy because it represents the intersection of earthly and divine consciousness and has been charged with protective intention by millions of believers over thousands of years. The Star of David, the Ankh, the Om symbol, and various Buddhist and Hindu protective mantras written in Sanskrit can also provide powerful spiritual protection when used with proper respect and intention. Crystals are particularly effective for spiritual protection because they are natural energy amplifiers that can hold and radiate protective frequencies indefinitely once they have been properly programmed with your intention. Black tourmaline is considered the most powerful protective stone because it absorbs negative energy and prevents psychic attacks. While obsidian can cut cords and attachments, hematite provides grounding and strength, amethyst raises your vibration and connects you to spiritual guidance, and clear quartz amplifies whatever intention you program into it, making it excellent for general protection work. To charge a crystal for protection, hold it in your hands while visualizing it being filled with brilliant white light, then state your intention clearly, such as I program this crystal to protect me from all negative energies and entities while attracting positive, healing energy into my life. Carry the crystal with you, place it in your bedroom, or create a protective grid around your living space by placing crystals in the four corners of your home while holding the intention that they create a protective barrier around the entire property. Sacred oils like frankincense, myrrh, sandalwood, and lavender can also provide protection when applied to your pulse points, diffused in your environment, or used to anoint protective symbols and crystals, because these oils carry high vibrational frequencies that naturally repel negative entities while attracting benevolent spiritual presences. The sixth essential technique is developing a regular spiritual practice that keeps your vibration high and your connection to divine guidance strong, because entities cannot attach to people who maintain consistently high vibrational states through prayer, meditation, service to others, and conscious spiritual development. Daily meditation, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes, helps you develop the inner stillness and clarity needed to distinguish between your own thoughts and emotions and any foreign influences that might be trying to affect you. Prayer, regardless of your specific religious or spiritual beliefs, creates a direct connection to higher dimensional assistance and protection that can override any negative influence in your energy field. Reading uplifting spiritual texts, listening to high vibrational music, spending time in nature, practicing gratitude, helping others, and engaging in creative activities that bring you joy all serve to raise your vibrational frequency and make you naturally unattractive to negative entities while drawing positive spiritual influences into your life. Regular fasting, either from food or from negative influences like television, social media, or toxic relationships, can also help clear your system and strengthen your spiritual defenses by reducing the density of your energy field and increasing your sensitivity to spiritual guidance and protection. The key is making spiritual protection and development a priority in your daily life rather than something you only think about when you're having problems, because consistent spiritual practice creates a foundation of strength and clarity that makes you immune to most forms of spiritual interference. The seventh and final technique I want to share with you is perhaps the most powerful of all, and that is learning to embody and radiate unconditional love, because love is the highest vibrational frequency in the universe and creates an automatic barrier against any form of negative energy or entity. When you truly embody love, not just romantic love or attachment, but the kind of unconditional, divine love that sees the sacred in all beings and wishes for the highest good of everyone, including your enemies, your energy field becomes so bright and powerful that negative entities simply cannot approach you, much like darkness cannot exist in the presence of light. This doesn't mean becoming passive or allowing others to mistreat you. Rather, it means maintaining a heart-centered awareness that recognizes the divine spark in all beings while also maintaining healthy boundaries and protecting yourself from those who haven't yet awakened to their own divine nature. Practicing loving-kindness meditation, where you systematically send love and blessings to yourself, your loved ones, neutral people, difficult people, and finally all beings everywhere, is one of the most effective ways to develop this protective love vibration. Forgiveness work is also crucial, because holding on to anger, resentment, or hatred toward anyone creates dense, heavy energy in your aura that entities can use as attachment points. So releasing these emotions through conscious forgiveness practice not only frees you from the past but also strengthens your spiritual defenses. Service to others, whether through volunteering, helping neighbors, or simply being kind and compassionate in your daily interactions, naturally raises your vibration and aligns you with benevolent spiritual forces that provide protection and guidance. The ultimate goal is to reach a state of consciousness where you no longer need external protection techniques because you have become a living embodiment of divine love and light that automatically repels any form of negativity while blessing everyone and everything in your environment. The knowledge I've shared with you today has been preserved and passed down through countless generations of spiritual teachers, shamans, and mystics who understood that spiritual protection isn't just important, it's absolutely essential for anyone who wants to live a truly empowered, conscious, and fulfilling life. These techniques aren't just theory or ancient superstition, they are practical tools that work immediately when applied with sincere intention and consistent practice. Remember, you are a sovereign spiritual being with the inherent power to protect yourself and others from any form of negative influence, and now you have the knowledge to exercise that power effectively. Start implementing these techniques today, trust in your own spiritual authority, and watch as your life transforms in ways you never thought possible. The entities that once seemed so powerful and threatening will lose their hold over you completely, and you'll step into the fearless, protected, and spiritually empowered life that is your birthright.